Okay, so let's go over our content and our language objectives. So I can describe the flow of energy through a food chain. And our language objective is I can write a paragraph using newly acquired vocabulary about the flow of energy. So this activity is going to teach us vocabulary-specific words to our flow of energy unit, as well as teach us how to write a description. So what do we need in a description? We need an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. What do we need? An introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So in order to make our organizer, we need to draw two lines. So here is our first line, and here is our second line. So the top part of our organizer is going to be our introduction. What do we do? What are we going to do in the body? We're going to draw a picture, label the parts, and tell the function of the parts. What are we going to do? Draw a picture, label the parts, and tell the function of the parts. So what is the function? What it is, how it works, why it's important, and what it does. So let's go to our conclusion. This is where we're going to place our conclusion. And our conclusion is we're going to repeat the definition of our sun, but we're going to be using different words. So up at the top, we will have the definition, our body, and then our conclusion. And the body is where we'll be describing our subject, and the bottom will repeat the definition but using different words. So here is our organizer. At the top, we're going to write S for subject. And our subject is who or what this description is going to be about. So the sun gives off energy that flows through producers to consumers and decomposers. So what do we have for our subject? The sun. So the sun. So what does the sun do? We're going to write an equal sign, and it's going to give off energy that flows through producers to consumers and decomposers. So we're going to write that now. So gives off energy that flows through producers to consumers and decomposers. So we have our introduction up at the top. The sun is our subject, and we have an equal sign that defines what the sun does. And we came up with gives off energy that flows through producers to consumers and decomposers. Or we could even say energy is transferred through producers to consumers and decomposers. We could even say that the energy from the sun flows to producers, to consumers, and decomposers. So by saying it out loud, we can figure out what sounds best. Okay, so we have our introduction. Now let's head to the body. The body is the description of the sun's energy. So when we say description of the sun's energy, how do we plan that description? We use our hand sign. So class, put your hand like this. We're going to draw a picture, label the parts, and tell the function of the parts. So can we add descriptive words to it? Absolutely, because we're writing a description. So let's go back and do it. let's draw our picture. We're going to label the parts, add some fancy words, and tell the function of the parts. So we will go back now and place our pictures. So our first picture is going to be our sun. And our sun gives off energy. Next, we are going to place our grass. And our grass uses the sun's energy to make its own food. It's called our producer. Next, we place our cow, which eats the grass to get energy because it cannot make its own food. And whenever the cow eats at the grass, it emits its waste. And once that waste is there, bacteria comes up and it breaks down the waste. And that's called our decomposer. So, we have placed the pictures. Now we're going to label the parts. So, this is the sun. Our second picture is our producer. Here is our consumer. And here is our decomposer. So, we have labeled the pictures. Now we have to go back and tell the function of the parts. And that means we're going to draw drop boxes below the different vocabulary words. We will fill in the vocabulary boxes telling the function of the words. So now we're going to write the function. So the sun gives off energy. And for that, I'm going to draw a little sign like that so I know that it gives off energy. Now we're going to move to our producer. And our producer uses the energy to make its food. So I'm going to draw a little sun so I know it uses the sun's energy. Now we move on to the consumer. And our consumer, it eats the plants to get its energy. And then after it eats the plants, it emits its waste in feces or poop. And so our bacteria comes down and our decomposer breaks apart the matter or our feces. So, as you can see, we drew our picture, we labeled the parts, and we told the function of the parts. And we even went back and added some fancy words. So, we have our introduction, our body, and now our last thing is our conclusion. So, notice the S on the bottom. So, on the bottom, this means we're going to repeat the definition, but using different words. So, we looked at our subject, the sun, and we said gives off energy that flows through producers to consumers and decomposers. Instead of saying that, what's another way that we can define, give a definition, or understand what the sun does? We can use the same thing, but we can come up with something different. So, we went back, come up with something different. So we went back and said the energy produced by the sun flows through the elements of a food chain. So, energy produced by the sun flows through the food chain. Period. So we have our introduction, our body, and our conclusion. Now we can orally rehearse our paper. So before that, let's go back over our vocabulary words. So our sun is our first thing. Then we can draw a line to know it goes down to the producer. Then from our producer, we go up to our consumer, and from our consumer, we go over to our decomposer. So it's like one big circle. So let's go over our paper. The sun gives off energy that flows through producers to consumers and decomposers. First, producers use the sun's energy to make their food. Then consumers eat the plants because they cannot make their own food. They eat the plants to get their energy. Last, decomposers break down the matter, and when that happens, they release nutrients and minerals back into the soil, which is used by the plants. The sun's energy is transferred through this food chain. So as you can see, we used our transition words with first, then, and last. So our paragraph should look like this. Now, class, I want you to go back through and highlight your vocabulary words.